When I was born, my parents were living in a railroad boxcar.
I know that he was basically born and raised in a boxcar.
They kind of had made it into a trailer house, to tell the truth. I didn't set my goal to be number one if I didn't get sick, because I did. I set my goal to be number one despite my circumstances. There are no excuses.
You are indeed the boxcar millionaire.
Tom Black, entrepreneur, wine connoisseur, accomplished author, sales professional, boxcar millionaire.
I was astounded. I was astounded the first time I met him. I know that he was basically born and raised in a boxcar. He has written a great little book called Boxcar Millionaire. It shows that every one of us can go from nowhere to somewhere great. He's going to show you how to sell your way rich. Would you please welcome up my dear friend, Tom Black.
Hello, I'm John Siegenthaler. Welcome once again to A Word on Words. Our guest today is Tom Black.
I believe success is not something you own, it's something you rent. And the rent is due every day. And when you quit paying the rent on success, you immediately begin paying the rent on failure.
From humble beginnings to door-to-door book sales to business success at the highest level, Tom Black exemplifies the American dream.
We live in the greatest country of the world for maximizing individual opportunity. And we ought to take every chance we get, every opportunity we can to guarantee that success. The great salespeople believe in the law of averages. The more people you see, the more chances you have to sell. The second aspect of sales success is the quality of your presentation. And then the final one is the quality of the prospect.
Now, Tom's passion is to teach others how to set goals and realize their own dreams of success through his proven sales system.
I didn't set my goal to be number one if my car didn't break down, because it did. I didn't set my goal to be number one if I didn't get sick, because I did. I didn't set my goal to be number one if I didn't run out of sales territory, because I did. I set my goal to be number one despite my circumstances. I think that if you have a goal and you don't communicate it to somebody else, it's a secret. And that's all it is.
His unwavering dedication is what has defined his success.
There are no excuses.
It is what defines Tom Black.
You're going to write another book?
Yeah.
When?
I don't know, but I'd like to title it The Boxcar Billionaire.
To learn more, visit the Tom Black Center for Selling at tomblackcenter.com, offering a full complement of sales training resources, including live seminars, conferences, books, CDs, and DVDs. To book Tom for sales training or motivational speaking, contact us online or give us a call.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, Mr. Tom Black. Mr. Black is an alumnus of Missouri State University and has a long track record of success as a banking industry business leader. He has led several top companies, providing innovative marketing and technology solutions for this industry. He began his career in business as a sales manager for the Southwestern Company, and later, Mr. Black started Private Business Inc., which grew into the country's leading provider of accounts receivable programs for community banks and their customers. In 1999, Mr. Black and a business partner purchased Technoflex Bank Source Incorporated and later formed a sister company, a Magic Corporation. As CEO, Mr. Black grew both companies from small regional providers to national sales and service organizations. He currently serves as the chairman of the board for Technoflex Bank Source, and recently, Mr. Black founded the Tom Black Center for Selling, offering customized sales training services to national clients in a wide range of fields. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Tom Black.
Well, I want to start this afternoon by telling you a story. It's about a man who came home from work and found a cigar burning in the ashtray. So he thought his wife had been seeing another man. He ran all over the apartment, looked everywhere, couldn't find the guy, right out of the balcony. 4 floors below was a man straightening his tie in the window. He said, "That's the guy." He ran back into the kitchen, grabbed the refrigerator, drug it through the house, lifted it over the balcony, dropped it on the guy, and killed him instantly. But he so overexerted himself in the process that he died of a heart attack. Well, a few minutes later, the scene changed. One of them showed up at Heaven's Gate and said, "I just died. I'd like to go to heaven." St. Peter said, "How'd you die?" The guy said, "You won't believe it. I was standing in front of a building, a refrigerator fell out of nowhere and smashed me flat. St. Peter said, "It's okay, come on in." A few minutes later, a second guy showed up, said, "I just died, I'd like to go to heaven." St. Peter said, "How'd you die?" The guy said, "I was moving the refrigerator around in my apartment, overexerted myself, and died of a heart attack." St. Peter said, "It's okay, come on in." A few minutes later, a third guy showed up and said, "I just died, I'd like to go to heaven." St. Peter said, "How'd you die?" The guy said, "You won't believe it. I was sitting in this refrigerator." So what does that have to do with commencement? If you're like most people that I speak to for the first time, there's a healthy degree of skepticism about somebody you've never met before, and you may not believe it. When I was born, my parents were living in a railroad boxcar. I didn't really realize that I was poor until about 7th grade, when some kids made fun of my clothes and they said they were a little out of style. I had an emotional meeting with my parents that night, and they said, "Your only hope is the free market enterprise." They said, "You can go as high on the ladder that goes out of the school as you want to, but it's all based on how hard you work and how much education you get." And so I decided then I'd be the first person in my family to graduate from high school. And then I got lucky. I got introduced to Southwest Missouri State and their debate program, and I came over here. And I got lucky again. There was a man recruiting students to sell books door to door in the summer for the Southwestern Company in Nashville, Tennessee, and some of you may have done that. I did that for 4 summers. They hired me full time. And then I got lucky a third time. A man named Bill King hired me, and we built a company from about $9 million in sales to about $1 billion in sales. Took it public, took it to the New York Stock Exchange. We became one of the S&P 500 companies. We started another business called Private Business. I was the first employee, and when I left, we had about 1,000 employees. We were traded on NASDAQ. We started another one, as Dr. Nitzel said, and it was called a Magic. We grew it from no employees to a publicly traded company. But the point is that over the course of my career, after I walked out of these doors, I learned some lessons. And I asked myself, what could I share with you all that might be valuable to help you down the road that they didn't tell me when I first graduated? And so I'm just going to share some basic ideas with you, and then wish you well and congratulate you. But first, I want to tell you this. You should all get your own personal definition of success. You know, success is an individual thing. And although my success has been largely monetary, there's been a lot of other little successes along the way that I've appreciated. I stole my definition of success from a guy named Earl Nightingale. This was the definition I took: the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. Now, that worked for me. It didn't say I had to be the richest. It didn't say I had to be the smartest. It didn't say I have the best-looking wife or girlfriend, the best car, or the best house. It only said that each day I was progressively moving towards my worthwhile goal or dream. Now, I've added a couple of things to my definition of success since then. One of them is this: that success is never owned, it's always rented. And the rent is due every day. And the minute you stop paying the rent on success, you've begun paying the rent on failure. It seems like success, no matter what profession you're in, is a down escalator, and if you stand still, you go backwards. The second thing I've added to my definition of success is that success is, there is a common denominator of success. There's a secret. And I think we all want to know the secret. I know when I was sitting in your chair, I wanted to know the secret. Here it is. Unsuccessful people don't do the things that successful people do. Successful people form the habit of doing the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do or know how to do. It's just that simple. Bill King told me when I came to work for him, "Tom, you need to be the first one here every morning, the last one to leave every day." It was just that simple for Bill. But the point is that success does come to a great extent by just showing up. Like Woody Allen said, 75% of success is just being there. So I'd challenge you first to get your own definition of success. The second thing that I'd share with you is something that I learned. I still remember walking across a similar place and getting my diploma and thinking to myself, I got it made, I got a degree, exciting, I am successful. But the next morning I didn't wake up any happier than I'd been the day before. So I began looking for happiness. And I kept thinking, well, maybe it's in a big job. I dropped out of law school, went to Nashville, Tennessee, took a job making a lot of money. That didn't bring me happiness. I looked around, I said, what do the guys have that are making them happy? A lot of guys had cars, so I got one of those. A lot of guys had houses, I got one of those. That didn't make me happy either. You know, I said, what am I missing? And a lot of guys had wives, so I got one of those. That didn't make me happy either. You see, what I learned was it wasn't a person, it wasn't a place, it wasn't an accomplishment, and it wasn't a possession that caused people to be happy. I learned what Abraham Lincoln said 150 years ago, that happiness is a way of traveling. It's a journey, not someplace you arrive. Most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. You know, when I travel around the world, I see poverty and I see happiness. So I know that happiness and wealth are not linked together. And I'd suggest you to realize this too, that happiness is a path, it's a journey, and it's going to be in the car beside you when you leave here today. You just have to recognize it. Third thing that I wanted to share with you today is this, that you should think big. I mean really big. I have the privilege of knowing a woman named Martina McBride. I met her about 11 years ago. She's a fairly famous country singer. Some of you may have heard of her. But anyway, so Martina introduces herself to me, and I say, where are you from? She says, well, I'm from Western Kansas. I'm from Western Kansas. So I said, really, where are you from? She said, you wouldn't have heard of it. I said, I might have. I'm from out there. She said, it's Sharon, Kansas. And I had heard of Sharon. Some of you may have heard of it too. And I knew some people. I'd worked on harvest in the summer down around there in high school. And she said, where are you from, Tom? I said, I'm from, I was born in Nickerson. Our town was so small, we shared a town drunk with the next town over. Some of you from those same sized towns, right? You know, I said I went away in the summer to work. When I came back one summer, they had carpeted our town. Very small. But anyway, I went to high school in Hutchinson. That was a little bit bigger. And she said, you know something, Tom? I worked in the Dairy Queen in Hutchinson to pay my way through junior college. Now, a question immediately popped into my head, but I didn't have enough courage to ask her. I'd just met her. But after a few glasses of wine and a little bit of a warm-up period, I said, Martina, when you were 18 years old, working in the Dairy Queen in Hutchinson, Kansas, going to Hutchinson Junior College, what were you thinking your life was going to be like when you were 32? That's how old she was that night. She didn't bat an eye. She said, I always knew I was going to be one of the greatest singers of all time. You see, nobody told Martina how big she could think. You think it would have been funny if, while they were working there in the Dairy Queen, she'd have turned to her co-worker and said, look, in a few years I'd like you to come to Nashville and see me get my CMA awards, or maybe you could come to the World Series and see me sing the national anthem or the Super Bowl, or, you know, I plan to have a private ceremony for one of the presidents, as she did for Obama this year. You see, they would have said, listen, we need to make more dip cones. You see, nobody controls how big you think. You can think as big as you want, and no matter who you work for or what you do when you leave here, that's the one thing that will always be in your control, is how big you think. Finally, I would want to say this. You can control your attitude. I was told a story when I first got out of school that I couldn't be successful if I didn't have a great attitude. I've learned that's not the truth. You can have a bad attitude and still be successful. You just have to learn to control your attitude and not let it affect your performance. I own a restaurant in New York. Everybody write this down, Alto. Anyway, and it's a kind of a hobby, and we really don't make any money out of it. But anyway, the chef has a bad attitude. He didn't like the sous chef, we got a new sous chef. He didn't like the silverware, we got new silverware. He didn't like the chairs, we got new chairs. He didn't like the tablecloths, we got new tablecloths. He didn't like the lighting, we got new lighting. He didn't like anybody or anything about that restaurant. He had a bad attitude. Now let me tell you about the restaurant. They flew him during the Turin Olympics to Italy to show on CBS how to cook pasta. We are the only Italian restaurant in North America that has a Michelin 2-star rating. We are New York's greatest wine list, and stars are in there on a regular basis. Martha Stewart, when she's able to leave her house, has her board meetings there. And Alec Baldwin is a regular in there. Maybe you read about Angelina and Brad having a 5-hour dinner in a restaurant in New York. That was our restaurant, Alto. Madonna was in there the other night. The CEO of Facebook had his parents in there the other day when I was in. But the point is, you do not have to have a great attitude to have a successful career. You just have to realize that your attitude cannot affect your performance. I've had the privilege the last couple of years of doing a lot of speeches, and a couple of those were with a man named Dennis Waitley. Dennis Waitley is the world's largest selling expert on positive attitude. And oh, by the way, for 40 years, he was the chief psychologist for the U.S. Olympic team. And he said that we can control our attitude if we do these 4 things. 1, read inspirational material. 2, use positive affirmations. He taught the Olympic athletes to say, I can, I will, I'm going to be the fastest runner in the world. I can, I will, I'm going to win the gold medal. He said the 3rd thing we can do to control our attitudes and not let it affect our performance is to focus on purpose. And the final thing that he said was that we have to use creative visualization. We have to close our eyes and imagine ourselves being bigger and greater and better than we've ever been before in our lives. And we can control our attitude using these 4 techniques. So I want to close today by just saying this. You'll walk out here with a lot of dreams and ambitions, and you'll have a lot of hopes. And I just want to encourage you to not make excuses for those hopes and dreams. You know, so many people I see over my lifetime had wonderful dreams and exciting ambitions and had so much optimism and hope, but they let excuses get in their way. It was the wife, it was the kids, it was the car, it was the boss. You know, everybody can make an excuse. And so I'll just close with this story, and maybe it'll help you when you find yourself making excuses. There was a very famous explorer named Cortez. But he wasn't a very famous explorer at all. He was banned from Madrid for an indiscretion with a married woman, and they exiled him to Cuba, Havana. And while he was in Havana, he was trying to figure out how he could get back to Madrid. And so he said, well, look, if I get the Aztec gold, if we conquer Mexico, they'll welcome me home. So he recruited 608 men, 11 ships, and they set sail from Havana for Veracruz. And I'm sure he was leading them in inspirational pep talks, creative visualization, inspiration. I'm sure he was using all the tricks. But anyway, when they landed in Veracruz, he got the men around and he stood up on a rock. History records this. And he said, can we win? Can 600 men conquer 10,000 Aztec warriors? And the Spaniards all said yes. And so Cortez said, then burn the boats. And history will further record that they burnt the boats. He said, if we're going back in their boats. And so I'd encourage you to do the same thing as you set out on your mission, and that is burn your boats. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, the most significant opportunity I've had in my life up to this point. And I want to congratulate you on the accomplishments of your life so far. Thank you.